Welcome to the Reflection Pool of Life. This week's episode of the Faith and Friction podcast. Join Mac and his co-host, The Rev, as they chat about the reflecting pool in Washington, D.C., and how its visible struggles remind us of the internal erosion that can happen when we lack good planning and perspective. Welcome to the conversation.
All right, welcome to Faith and Friction. Wonder how much friction all of you out there are having this week. I don't know.
It doesn't sound like it's a blessing, but it's like, I wish you all good friction.
Yeah.
Like good trouble.
Positive friction,
Positive
right?
friction movement.
Yes, they gain some traction.
I was reading our mug here, a deep dive into faith's unrest. Are we wishing unrest? Yes,
Of course.
because we're getting out of stagnation, we're getting out of complacency, and we're moving into possibility.
The norm, getting away from the norm. It makes us complacent. So here we are once again. Let's stir the pot, brother, and we can have some fun with this one.
I think so. I'm a little nervous about it, but I'm ready to have some fun with it.
Here's what's fun. I love this. You know what happened today, right? We were talking about it earlier. That you typically will contact me either the day before or like this morning and say,
what are we talking about?
What are we talking about? What are we doing? And you jokingly mentioned this subject, just kind of tongue in cheek. And I texted you back and I said, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. We got this cosmic thing that we're all in the same.
Buckle up, strap in. We're going to talk about algae and algae rhythms.
Yeah. Algae. So I wonder what's coming to your mind right now. Listeners, algae, a complete, what I would consider debacle, and we're going to just take it out of the current events because we're just going to use this current event.
Yep.
We're not going to pick it apart terribly or anything like that. We're just going to be very realistic about the whole reflecting pool thing if you haven't already know where we're going here.
As a metaphor, a reflecting pool, which is where all roads lead to me. And I've been on the podcast long enough for any listener to go, all roads lead to, what is it teaching me? What am I learning about myself? How can I grow here?
Exactly. For the most part, we're going to say, here's some things that happened.
Yep. And there might be some critique in there.
Yeah. Well, there will be because we need to apply some of this critique. The overall objective that we talked about and that we're all over is we may critique, and we're going through the process of what's gone on there, but more to be able to take that critique and apply it to our own.
Exactly. Using current event for the metaphor of how I can do life better.
And how, look around my life, look around how have I made these kinds of decisions in the past and what can I do better? All right. The main thing is we want to talk about how our lives can erode and get murky due to poor planning and perspective. We all have done it. We're not pointing a self-righteous finger at anybody.
It's on full display. It's not self-righteous, but we have a reflecting pool in Washington, D.C.
That's right.
And it's a big debacle right now.
That's exactly. And why? And we're going to talk about some of the whys as we sit away from it. We get that. And again, say to ourselves, how have I done that in my life?
Exactly.
So that's really where we're going. So how can we do it better? At the end of the day, we want to have a conversation together and think about how we can do it better.
Friction for the sake of friction is a waste of time. Friction for the sake of asking that question, how can I do life better? How can I be better based on what I'm seeing and witnessing?
Absolutely. That's the mission here. We just don't want to be another talking head, but a couple of talking heads that are bashing the government at this point. That's going on a lot.
Sure.
We can poke a little tongue in cheek at it and have a little fun with it because some of it is kind of funny at this point, really. But there's also a little bit of egregiousness. And sometimes I have to call that out as well because it burns my heart on some of the cause and effect that's going on.
I think we have a responsibility to, own what it means to me. But as an American citizen, to call it out past, present, and in the future, this didn't work so well.
Yeah.
And be able to have a meaningful conversation with critique for the lesson that might be there without being name called.
Snarky.
Without being cast aside or being snarky. No, it's part of the responsibility.
And we're going to, we acknowledge that responsibility and forgive us if sometimes in the conversation, especially me, gets a little bit snarky, maybe a little. All right. But I try not to. All right. So that's what we're going to talk about.
All right.
In this episode, man, we want to go there. And so here's the first question that we're going to ask. What do you see in your reflection? Whether it's in the mirror, whether it's in the pool, I thought this week when I was putting this together that how many epic stories, historical epic, like Lord of the Rings, whatever it might be, that the mystery, you look into this bowl or into this pool or into this water type thing to look at certain things, the future, the past, the possibilities, all that kind of stuff.
That's the way I read the Bible.
Symbolism.
That's the way I read any scripture. How is this alive in me? This is myotic interpretation. So any story historically actually happened or fairy tale that didn't happen, these characters are alive in me. And that story has the most meaning.
Yes. I think about, I'm a LOTR, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, right? And so I thought this week of the one part when Gollum, the positive Gollum, the contrite Gollum, looks into the water and he sees the nasty Gollum. His reflection is
to
the
me,
other side.
That's what the metaphor is here. Everything that's happening in the world, happening in my life, happening in my government, can be a wonderful mirror, reflecting to me that some area of growth or some area of positive goodness or some dark spot I need to look at.
If all over the pot, you're really good at it. You will say this is a scenario, and it's an UG maybe, or whatever it might be, but what's the value that we can take from it? And sometimes that's hard to do because if you're in the ditch, you're mad, you've been abused, you've been whatever the scenario is. And we can talk all about what we're letting that scenario affect us. Well, you should, but the point, we don't want to sound trite and we don't want to sound just dismissive about suffering or about challenge or about things that happen. So we get
However,
that.
suffering is a mirror indicating something needs addressing, something needs to be challenged within me and externally as well. Usually it's what are the patterns? What are the habits? Then what are they producing? If I don't like the results, change the pattern.
We're going to talk about pattern in this episode because that certainly builds itself in. So there it is. What do you see in your reflection? Patterns.
Good, bad, and then the ugly.
That's right.
Can we create an environment internally and hopefully externally, probably easier internally, maybe not. I can look at all aspects of stuff that's working and the stuff that isn't working, take ownership of those habits and make the corrective changes need to be made. I would hope so. That's my hope for my spirituality, my family.
Across the board.
It's my hope for our country, that ownership of whatever is up, responsibility.
We are talking a lot about that right now. Sidebar, aren't we? That's all part of what we're talking about.
Well, is there responsibility happening with the reflecting pool right now? Everybody's blaming everybody else. Let's just get about the fixing of the problem.
Yes. Let's not point any fingers, which, again, they can always be, as you frequently will say, if we're going to point fingers, let's make it constructive. Let's own it. And
not name calling, going, you might want to look at that. My closest friends, I have the right to say you might want to look at that, and they can call me out on my BS as well. Take a look. Boy, that's a healthy environment.
Correct. Yes, it is. So patterns. And then as we look into this, our own reflection, many times we'll see the lines on our face maybe, or the pain in our eyes, and we will think about the past, what's happened to us, and we start to relive all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I've found in myself, that's typically the negative stuff. That's what's going to come back into me. And now all of a sudden, what good is that doing me? Now we're not really learning from the past. We're just sunk in it. We're just, wringing our hands.
Bringing up the past can be a really positive thing. I didn't learn the lesson then, but I'm going to learn it now. Or if I just relive it and just play the broken record over and over again, it's of no value. But did I not learn 10 years ago that I could learn right now?
Great point. The past, how about hope? Maybe we can look in that bowl, that reflection, and see hope for the future.
That's the Lion King, the little cub looking in and seeing the magnificent king he can be.
Correct. Let's maybe start.
And maybe king is not the right metaphor.
All right. Oops. I can chuckle with you on that one without a doubt. We have to be able to look at ourselves with hope for the future. Yes. What kind of life would it be if we really couldn't feel good about ourselves, have a good self-image, and truly believe that there's a good tomorrow in there for us.
And let's again bring it back to the reflecting pool in Washington, D.C. Is there any hope that exists of what can be if there's no ownership? Does hope require ownership on all sides? This
Correct.
is not on one person.
Correct.
It's on political parties. It's on everybody who's just looking for somebody to blame and go, gotcha, you screwed up. That's not growth. I have no hope for the future if that's the only energy involved here. Boy, we kind of messed up. This didn't work, and it's expensive. All right, let's do it better.
And then you say, how?
Yep.
You got to
have the how.
Got to ask the how. And then we've already mentioned this, just an absolute, I'm going to look into we did it when we were setting the intention for tonight, because I have a table in the room where we do our pre-show, and it's glass, and we could look over it, and we just saw ourselves.
And at that table, I want you to know, before every episode, we just hold an intention that what we do has a positive influence. But that mirror's looking, and sometimes I'll be honest, I get behind the microphone, I'm looking at that reflection in that table going, God, I am tired looking. And we put the mirror on the ceiling so I look better.
Let's not talk about mirrors on the ceiling at this point. Maybe we shouldn't go there. I'm not sure. But
it's an honest look.
An honest look at yourself. Can we really do that?
Yeah.
But we want to encourage it. A reflecting pool reflects lots of things.
Yeah.
And here's what I really think. It reflects the mystery as well. If you will put on the right eyes as you look into that pool. And we were talking about this whole, the epic stuff, that yes, you can see the physicality, of course, but in your mind's eye, peel that back just a little bit and see a greater, deeper essence that's there.
That requires a great deal of vulnerability and humility.
Yes.
So look in the mirror. I've done those exercises and workshops, and you look into your own eyes. And oftentimes, if you can do it long enough and get past the hump of the uncomfortableness of that, you hear things, feel things, and know things about yourself. Ooh, I wasn't willing to look at that. I think culturally right now, everyone's just going around they're holding the mirror for everybody else to see. Let me hold it up to you. What's wrong with you, and what's wrong with you and you, and we're not actually looking into it. That's become the norm.
I think it's that if you point one finger, how many are pointing back at you? That whole kind of concept.
And again, keeping the religious component here, I think Jesus brought a great mirror for humanity to look. But he also did it himself. It was a both and reality. Yeah, you need to look in the mirror. I'm going to hold it up to you. And I'm looking in it at the same time.
And yes, along with that, he said, and it's to follow my example as well. You can look at me and see yourself in me, because I want you to thrive. I want you to do, quote, greater things than these. Yeah. So it's a beautiful example.
Can our lives be the reflection of that which is holy and sacred and good and pure? I believe they
Absolutely.
can. And it's not anybody else's responsibility to do that. It's mine. All roads lead to me.
Yes.
Even when I see, but you need to, I have to look at my own willingness to turn the mirror facing towards my direction.
It's helpful. It's healthy.
It's healthy.
So there we are. So let's be a little realistic. What we're going to do is we're going to draw the parallels. We've already said about this.
Sure.
So we're going to walk through the process, what happened and is continuing to happen up there in Washington, D.C., just to observe, just to say, here's where it started, here's where it went, then here's what happened. And in each stage along the way, as we're doing that, let's apply it to how we have done the same things in our life.
Just the facts, ma'am.
That's
just
where we're
the
going.
Facts.
Exactly. Here we go. We start the project, and it's announced that we're going to renovate the memorial reflecting pool. Coming out with an objective, coming out with a dream, coming out with a vision. This is us. This could be us without a doubt. And part of a celebration. All right. Decision was made that needed to be part of that celebration. You're going to make decisions in your life.
So maybe very good intention. There's a good intention to celebrate the divine idea of America in 250 years. Exactly. Let's make it look a little better.
All right, here we go. There was an idea behind it. Now, here's the one component that we make sure we keep in mind. This project, all of it, costs the American people. The money's coming from us. So there's another component in there, that accountability, responsibility.
Yes.
It takes on also a little bit of a different level as we can, I'm going to say, critique this, because quite frankly, these resources our resources.
Yep.
So it's a help.
It's okay to say, well, hold on a second. Let's plan this out carefully.
Correct.
Because it is my money invested.
And I want to see that you're responsible with it. All right. So we got this thing that starts, and there was a budget, right? There was a budget in this case of $1 to $2 million, and it was for repainting the bottom, American flag blue, and resealing the seams. Now that's the scope of work.
Yep.
Agree with it? Don't agree with it? Think it doesn't matter. That's what got put out there. And those were the guidelines, and that was the scope of work.
Yep.
All right. We always need it. You're going to put a renovation in your house. You're going to redo your kitchen. You're going to put an addition on your house. You're going to have to go through the same thing. Same deal. Plan a vacation. Same thing. We're not just going to head off and don't know what it's going to cost and don't bother. I mean, so we do these things all the time. These are our responsibilities, right? Okay. So there we are. That's where it starts. Now, one component here, and I think we had to talk about this from a personal standpoint, but this is a fact. That job was awarded to the contractor, and it was a no-bid contract. So there, again, was not as much accountability and due diligence that should have been done. And there was a reason given for it. But in my mind, you throw, here's why we did it, let's move on. But you have to step back from that and you say, that's not a very good reason.
Yeah. Every project I've ever done in my own house, thank God I've got a partner, maybe a checks and balance, because I'm like, let's just go. How much is it going to cost? Have you planned it well? And I tell you, we always build into our budget at home with any project.
Correct.
A little bit extra on top because of the unknowns and the unexpected. That's just smart business. But it's a plan. You draw the plans out. You talk about the plans. You don't just start going.
You just don't put it into motion and worry about it later.
I tried to build a deck once with no plans, and it was a complete, utter disaster.
That's some good advice for our listeners. There it is right there.
It worked fine if you didn't mind if it was not level.
Or kind of square, sort of.
Or if it supported you when you walked on it.
Nah, those are minor points. All right, so now we get into this project. There it is. There's the scope of work. There's the plan. There's the vision. Now you have to say what actually the reality of the scenario. First of all, a huge cost overrun.
Yes.
It went from 1 to 2 to 13 to 14. And these are guidelines, a lot more. Can we just say that? Let's not get hung up on the numbers. Way more than it was initially anticipated. All right. So there in itself.
And again, that's cutting a little slack. Originally anticipated or originally sold.
And I think, yes.
And if there's not thought, I'm just going to throw a number out on the top of my head. I think it's going to be 3 million. Oh, sorry, guys, it's 14. Wait a minute. There's no accountability there.
Correct.
So it was not thought out and planned well.
There's a lesson for us as well. And here's the sad part about that. A couple things for me. Number one, where'd the money come from? I had to ask that question, right? Did you get a credit card out? What did you do, right? And so this money for this project came from the Department of Interior. All right. In the whole effort to trim down the government, starting with Elon Musk and his chainsaw, right in the very beginning, there have been cuts to the federal workforce. Now, you can agree with that. You can not agree with it. You can agree with the extent that it was done, how it was done. Here's the point. The Department of Interior got cut to its extent, however they wanted to do it, whatever. My point is, why would they do that? To save money. They're cutting back the workforce to save dollars, to not have government so bloated, to be prudent.
This is a scenario as the leader of a church. I have to always go. We had to make some cuts to make ends meet. But then I don't come back and say, now we're going to put a wing on. I took it from the children's program. I took it from the music program, but I'm going to build a wing on this church. Well, wait a minute. That doesn't feel like responsibility.
Good stewardship.
Not good stewardship at all.
So this is what happened. We cut to be budget minded. And then we took the money that was still there, but we didn't use it because we cut. And then we reallocated it over here. I don't think that's a wise decision myself. And I don't think if we're in a similar scenario, we should think about exactly what we're doing and why we're doing, because we can justify things.
And making a unilateral decision. Who's involved in this? If I'm spending the money of my family, I'm going to talk to my wife before I just spend it and go that far overrun. If I go to the church, there's the board of directors. Do we think this is a good use of our money? And we talk about it. I don't just say, honey, guess what? I'm putting a wing on the house or tell the board, I just spent a lot of money to get what I wanted.
Correct.
After I just cut your food budget.
Let's go right there, because this also grieves me, because not only did they borrow from here to do something that you may or may not agree with or may have not had a high enough priority, but where could that $14 million-ish, let's not get hung up on the number, where could it have gone? And what grieves me about this is, from a priority and an allocation of resources, again, how do we do it in our own family?
Yep.
Think about the way the government has operated in the past year and a half and the numbers of people that have been affected by cut to government. Again, I don't think I don't want us in this conversation, had no intention of trying to peel all that back. But the point is that we have taken away pretty significant basic things, food and some other kinds of care from a lot of people.
And in some cases, just to be fair-handed here, some of those cuts needed to happen. There was fat being trimmed.
And I don't disagree with that.
I like to trim the rose bush with a nice set of shears and not a chainsaw.
Correct.
And I think it was a little overzealous. I'll agree there. But some of those cuts needed to be made.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think that if we're going to err, though, if we're going to make a mistake, if we're going to stub our toe on it, then we ought to give more over here, even if it's not justified, even if all those things, as opposed to this kind of endeavor. And fill in the blank. It doesn't have to be the reflecting pool. I think there's a whole lot of stuff that's gone into our government in the last year and a half.
There's a lot of, they're going to lean into it,
suffer.
A lot of unilateral decisions.
Yes.
In my household, if I make decisions without consulting my wife, I don't have a marriage much longer. If I make unilateral decisions in my church, one, I'm going against the very policies and bylaws of my church organization. I could do it, but I wouldn't have a job very long, because we have a system set up of cooperation, a system of checks and balances, a system of co-creation that is important to things being done well. And my concern is, as it would be for any congregant if I started doing that at church, a lot of unilateral decisions have been made and there is no checks on it. I want my money over there because it feels good to me. That makes me a little nervous. And if it can happen with a reflecting pool, if it can happen with a ballroom, if it can happen with anything.
Yeah, name it.
And it's not a big deal if it's an isolated incident, but it starts to stack up.
There's the pattern.
And I have the right as a citizen to say, wait a minute. This doesn't feel like this was a collective decision. It's just willy-nilly.
Yes, we do have a responsibility to our government has a responsibility to us. In your scenario that you were talking about at the church, now what happens to your integrity? Now what happens to your reputation? All of these things go into all of these decisions that everybody's looking in. They're always looking in on, especially you live in a fishbowl, man.
Yeah.
But people around us are always watching us. Stu used to say that all the time, right?
People are paying attention.
Yes.
And we should pay attention.
I agree. So,
I won't have a job, though. They're paying attention. They're going to say, wait a minute, you're not doing the job you were hired for. You're just up there just...
Stand accountable.
Exactly. Accountability.
There it is. So,
and that has not happened with the reflecting pool.
That has not happened with the reflecting pool. And so now you got an issue, right? Now some things aren't as you thought they were going to be. With any construction project, you were talking about this, you build in a little hedge and the mushroom cloud starts. And so overruns and then overruns on top of overruns. And all of a sudden the whole thing gets out of control with not enough people standing accountable. And there's not enough no's going on because the bigger overarching driving force says, I don't care. We got to get this done. Yeah. And so the minute we lose sense of propriety and due diligence and common sense because we're focused on something else, and we do it, things get out of hand.
One of the most powerful words on the planet. Oops. ownership. I'm going to own I made a mistake. But what happens is because we didn't plan well enough, and back to me, if I don't plan enough, I'm going to quickly solve it to try and make sure it's not real. Again, no planning, just dump chlorine in there
by the gallon.
I didn't think that through. I didn't consult other people. And now I've got a bigger problem.
Life has a way of working this way.
Yeah.
When we set something in motion that is not diligently thought out, the typical way it doesn't usually end well. And there's usually the mushroom cloud along the way.
Yeah.
It grows like crazy.
And we're throwing gasoline on the fire because let's fix it quickly. The way I think it should be fixed, it just got bigger. Let's throw something else on there. Let's put hydrogen peroxide in there. Oh, it's getting bigger and it's bigger. So now who can I blame?
They're the blame game.
And it would have been easier to say, oops, we made a mistake. Own it. Let's clean it up.
Fix it.
And I tell you what, my family or my church, the family goes, yes, let's fix it.
Much more forgiveness in that.
Not, it's your fault. It's your fault. I tell my wife, it's your fault we have a problem.
See, this just doesn't fly, and we're living with it
Hold the
almost
mirror up
daily.
Look, oops.
Okay. So again, the next thing is the algae, just the physicality of the whole pool. It gets nasty. It doesn't look well. It doesn't look good. And so again, think about in our own life when the fruit starts to appear when we don't do the root right. That fruit's the appearance, your speech, your thinking, if you haven't internalized it, and now all of a sudden, people start looking at you a little funny going, I've never heard that come out of your mouth before, Rev. What's going on, man? How's that? Gee. And there becomes an erosion, I think, of murkiness to you.
You bet.
I think that you use that word murky.
Living in a fog.
There it is. Yes. So then you have, again, the people then, like, use the example of your church. Now, if you were to start doing things like you said you shouldn't, now what's the fall?
Consequences. I made a decision. I'm just going to suffer the consequences.
If you continue to posture on it, then what? You just further it as opposed to making.
If I learn the lesson, then I don't repeat the mistake and there's a better environment.
And you're honest about it.
Exactly.
That's what you were saying earlier. You just admit it. People will be forgiving per se. Depends on the circumstance, all right? At the same time, that honesty will go a long way. And that humility will go a long way. Yeah. So if we haven't practiced enough of that in our life, maybe it's a little time to have a little gut check. Look at the reflecting pool.
And again, drawing the parallel to my own life, I find when I am very defensive about my lack of planning, it never ends well. When I am defensive about my lack of planning, it does not end well. And when I go, you're right, I could have thought that through a little better. Let's sit down and do it together.
What can I do to help you now? See? All of a sudden.
And again, being fair-handed, I don't think either side of the aisle right now in our government is doing that.
I would agree completely with that as well.
Yeah. We have a guy in charge who is leading the charge, I believe, and I think he needs to be held accountable, as every Democrat does too, as I need to do for myself.
Surely. Our representatives, they represent us, and we should hold them accountable. Yep. I don't care whether you're red or blue. All right.
The paint is going to start to peel.
Yeah, it's going to start floating to the top, in the midst of the. I saw a meme the other day of that green reflecting pool, and Godzilla was coming out of it.
The creature from the Black Lagoon.
Creature from the Black Lagoon, not Godzilla. Then you start to get the people that do know something about what's going on. Often if you had, I remember one time, and I'll tell a short story, but we moved out in the country and got horses. Didn't know a thing about horses. Yeah. Didn't know one stinking thing about it.
That's a recipe for danger.
And so we went out there and we built this fence. And we did some of this other stuff, and we unloaded my horse, and he was this big 14-hand quarter horse.
That's a big horse.
And he proceeded to come out of that trailer and run straight through the fence. I mean, he didn't skip a beat. And there was this old timer standing, because he was watching this with our neighbors. He was standing over there watching us. And he was just chuckling. He was just, oh my goodness. I knew that was going to happen. Yep. It was like the quintessential, yep, I could see that coming. And so these kinds of perspectives start to look in on what's going on, and they realize the unprofessionalism that's been done, cluelessness, whatever the motivation was. But now you start to get people saying, wait a minute, I know a little bit more than you do about this if you'd have just asked me. Or...
if I can humble myself for consultation.
Exactly.
Let me just ask a few questions to get the information. Ego can't do that.
Absolutely.
If ego says, I'm smarter than anybody else in the room, you'd say to that farmer who was watching you and laughing, I'm smarter than you.
Yeah.
You just proved that you aren't. So maybe some consultation would be a good idea.
Well, this is exactly what we started to do. What do you think? Yep. We messed this up. We got some bad advice. We handled it wrong.
There's the ownership.
What are you thinking?
Okay.
And all of a sudden, guess what? He was willing to.
Well, and you probably both chuckled. You all chuckled together and went, wow, that was a disaster.
We had to go chase the horse down the street.
Same problem with putting up a tent. I never put up a tent before, and the guy's laughing at me. He came over and we laughed at my ineptness with doing it.
Correct.
And we had a great time. Community was raised, and the tent was solid by the end of the day.
Again, this is the two. Together is better, and humility is better, and prudence is better, and thoughtfulness is better.
To me, the smartest person in the room is the one who's willing to consult. The smartest person in the room is the one who can suspend their ego and say, help me understand the science behind what I'm doing. The sun in relationship to the color, to the water in relationship to the chlorine, the paint. All of it's just ask the questions.
Pretty scientific, quite frankly.
It is. It's history proven.
Here's the friction that I see in this. We tend to talk about faith and friction because that's the name of the podcast, correct? We haven't talked a whole lot about religious faith at this point because this isn't part of necessarily this discussion. I think the friction with faith in this episode comes with our friction that we have with faith in ourselves, that we either have a false faith the way we look at it. We'll talk all the time about how beautiful and divine, and it's all true.
Yep.
There's no doubt about it. But when we have a faith that sort of usurps that and goes back to our ego, and now we have faith that we can make these decisions all on our own, maybe we got a little friction there. I think that is where, in this episode, for me, the friction comes in with.
And a faith that not only that I can make the decisions all myself, but that everybody's just going to fall in line and not question when it messes up. That's really unhealthy. And then it creates the ego against everybody else. I'm right and you're just wrong. And if you admit that you're wrong, even though paint is peeling and there's algae in the pool, then we're going to get along just fine. And how dare you question me? How dare you challenge me? The algae is speaking. The algae demands challenge.
It does.
You're not you're not a horrible person. You're not evil, but we got a problem. Can we fix it? And we cannot as long as the ego says, I'm smarter than you.
Yeah.
Oh, and let's make up a story.
And by the way,
this is going to probably piss some people off. Let's make up a story that somebody sabotaged it. There's no evidence of that.
Again, let's look for patterns in our life.
Yeah.
Do we, as a pattern, as we look into that reflecting pool of our own life, do we see a pattern? Can we even see our own pattern that develops over time of these poor decisions, disasters, all the way across the or good decisions? I'm not saying it's
taking
all
it
bad.
back to the Lion King, Simba, right?
Yeah.
Looking into the pool. Mufasa will never be born in Simba if there is no responsibility. You do not become, I'm going to use the word again, the king of the jungle without responsibility, without humility. And that's what I love about the story of the Lion King. Mufasa was very humble. Mufasa was very aware of right and wrong. Plain and
they
simple.
trusted him. They could count on him. Didn't mean he was infallible. Just means they could trust him.
Right.
That's so important. So let's just wrap it up then. We're getting ready.
We didn't get to page 4, 5, 6, and 27.
No, there's a long story here, isn't there? So let's see if we can do a little synopsis. Here it is right here. In short, the timeline shows, and grid this however you want to, but the timeline shows a rapid rollout. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. It happened fast.
Yep.
We need that guy to no bid contract because we got to get going.
I want it now.
That's it. So it shows a rapid rollout, unmet expectations. I think that's pretty evident. Hello. All right. And a series of visible failures that have turned the reflecting pool into a symbol of the project's management and responsibility.
Yeah.
So we manage our own lives. We manage the lives of others. Depends your job. So this reflection, and you're great about it. And I think the encouragement here is we all manage something, or even just our own life. Not anything else than that. Stand accountable, be humble, look at it with objective eyes, get counsel.
Let's going back to kindergarten. Stop, look, listen. If you don't listen, there's a piece missing from the equation.
And after you do those three things, have some milk and cookies and take a nap.
Oh, I'm all about the nap.
So great discussion, Rev. Thanks a bunch. I think these were perspectives. I love doing a little tongue-in-cheek on current events that we can use as an analogy.
I love
not
metaphors.
to
I
pick
can
it
be the
apart.
metaphor to death.
You know, we're just, it was fun, man, but pertinent.
I think so.
Applicable.
And again, every listener, take the mirror and just look into it.
Yeah.
We threw some ideas out there and the mirror was turned away, but we're turning it within. That's all we ask, the friction within to grow, to become more.
Thanks for teaching me the value of that, because you constantly do it, and I appreciate it.
You did a pretty impressive job today.
It's a lot of fun. Thanks a bunch, and thanks for listening, and we will catch you next week.